Hello, and welcome to this module in a titration video series on campus and zero trust. I'm Remi, and I'm working with Tim, and we're going to talk a bit about how we can get this titration magic pushing towards the edge and getting data from the campus to get better end-to-end security. Can you help us a bit understand what we're actually cooking up?
Yeah, absolutely, Remi. So, like you mentioned at the start of the video, this is part of the zero trust strategy for Cisco. Now, zero trust is all about ensuring that we know exactly who is accessing our network, what are they accessing, and should they be accessing those assets. Those people or users might be out there on the campus, they might be using a BYOD device, they could be anywhere in the world. And they could be accessing applications that might be hosted on premises or in the cloud or a mixture of both. So basically, we could be dealing with users anywhere and applications anywhere at the same time. And we need to be able to ensure that only authorized communications should be happening. Only users that should see the right type of data should be able to access that data. That's really what zero trust is about. So to make zero trust work, you have to have that end-to-end picture. You can't just be talking about assets in the data center, because if you're just looking at assets in the data center, you have no way to correlate what's happening in the campus. And if you're just looking at assets in the campus, how do you know exactly what applications in the data center that they are dealing with? So that's why it really requires a composite topology where you're dealing with campus products and campus visibility and application visibility and application enforcement at the same time.
It's a very good point, Tim, but just one thing I didn't hear yet, and that's kind of the fancy thing right now, IoT?
IoT. Definitely IoT is part of the zero trust story. Those IoT devices, those HVACs, those printers, those random new speakers that might be just sat in an office somewhere, should they be getting access to every application in your data center? I'm going to say probably not. Knowing the security that they put into some of those things, having that HVAC accessing your customer database seems like a bit of a problem, right?
Yeah, I'd be a bit worried about that.
Yeah, I would be. So the way that we achieve that is by using three products together in tandem. So for the workforce security, we're looking at Duo. We're not going to talk too much about Duo today because we're focusing on campus security and application security. And in that case, we're talking about workload security being controlled by titration and workplace security being controlled by ICE. And to make that whole story flow together, it's really about how we can use those two products in conjunction to come up with a securer posture. And that's using identity data from ICE to make enforcement decisions in the data center. Sound reasonable?
That sounds reasonable,
yeah.
But I still don't see how all this ties up to titration, honestly.
So, would you like me to play it out on the whiteboard a little bit for you?
Yeah, I need pictures, a bit slow.
Pictures make things really much easier. They say 1,000 words, right? So, what we have here on our whiteboard is a basic diagram around what might happen on a typical day-to-day basis when it comes to a campus user accessing an application in the data center. So looking here, we have our user, our favorite user, Mr. Bob Sponge over there, on his laptop. Always
Bob Sponge of Bikini Bottom here.
Yes. Now, he could be anywhere. He could be at a campus, he could be at a branch, he could be, in any remote location, but he still needs to be able to access the work assets. He needs to access applications that are inside the company's network. So typically, without this integration that we're going to talk about, Bob might just have complete unfettered access to any application inside the data center. Because you can't lock down every user easily in the past, often that was the only choice.
That's an interesting topic. You're mentioning a lot about locking down Bob. Could you just explain a bit on how we lock him down, like versus credentials to log into the corporate extranet versus network stuff and stuff like that?
Yeah, so this is really not about authenticating his credentials or doing the authorization through titration. It's more about how he accesses the applications and will those applications let Bob access them. For example, if I'm running an application that's dealing with HR data, surely I should only let users that are part of the HR group access that application. And that's what we're talking about here, locking down those applications so that only the right types of users may be able to access them.
So does that mean, because that's like a point you're trying to make is potentially visibility, in the sense if I cannot even see the HR system because I'm not authorized to access it, I mean, I can't really do anything on it.
Yeah, that's really it. If you're on your campus network and right now you can ping your HR system that only HR employees could be accessing, that is a potential vulnerability. That allows you as a user that shouldn't be accessing that application the capability to probe it for vulnerabilities and even, exploit that application. Or it might even just be carelessness. You might just access that application when you really shouldn't have been accessing that application. There's very valid reasons to control who can access and see different applications.
Makes sense. So it's sort of defense in depth for the campus?
Yes. Yeah.
Very nice.
So the way that we're going to deal with this, and we're going to walk through a demonstration of how we set this all up, but at a high level, it's a very simple flow, to be honest. You have the user that is accessing their laptop. When they open that laptop up, when they log onto that laptop in the morning, they are going to go through an authentication flow. And that is going to be both through ASA. In our circumstance here, we're going to be using an ASA to come up with an AnyConnect login.
Okay.
And that login is going to be authenticated via ICE.
Okay.
So now,
Bob comes in, opens his laptop, he connects to something, he gets username, password. ICE supposedly responds back to ASA. Hopefully everything works fine. And when that happens, Bob is connected.
Yes.
Okay. That part is easy.
That's easy. That's what we expect. That is what ICE has been doing for a very, very long time in the campus already. So if you're familiar with campus technologies already, shouldn't be anything that's too surprising, right?
And that's totally irrespective of titration, right?
Totally disconnected from titration.
Okay.
That still exists inside the campus world. But this is where we bring titration into the picture. So what you can see is that ICE, via pxGrid, which is the messaging bus that ICE uses, is going to inform titration about Bob logging on.
So just to clarify, you're saying ICE is informing titration, or titration is pulling data from ICE?
Well, it's via pxGrid, which is a message bus, so it's going to be updated dynamically as that user logs on.
Okay, so it's like really a push method. I don't need to worry about it. It's not like, it's not going to be able to communicate or anything like that. There's a subscription to a topic. When a user connects, I say, hey, here's this user, it's connected to me, these are the attributes.
Yeah, and that's really good because it's going to reduce the downtime between Bob logging on and titration knowing about the fact that Bob has logged on. We're not waiting for a timer to expire before we find out that information.
Okay. But then when you're talking about that, so I see ASA, I see ICE. You've been talking about authentication. How do I get flow data? Because that's really a problem at this point, because Bob will connect. We viewed in different modules that Bob is using ICE. ICE is using user metadata, not flow data. So how do I know? How do I fill in the picture?
So that's why ASA, we're also going to enable a connector on ASA to send telemetry data to titration.
Okay.
So we're going to use these as sort of a 1-2 team. We're going to use ICE for the metadata, the context around that workload, and we're going to use ASA to get that flow visibility around exactly what Bob is doing.
I see. Okay, so it's a combination in that case.
Yes.
Is there any agents on Bob's laptop?
Luckily, we don't have to load another agent on Bob's laptop, because if his laptop is anything like mine, it's got quite a few agents on it already. So,
really, Tim, does it?
at least I should have agents on my laptop, I should say. So, we're going to use a connector both on the ASA side and on the ICE side to collect all that information without having to install an extra client on the laptop. Now, in our demonstration, we're going to use AnyConnect, but that's not a requirement. You don't have to be using AnyConnect on the laptop.
Correct. Yeah, just for the audience to understand, we use AnyConnect just because we're running inside VMs. And if we want to do a .1x authentication towards a device, in a VM, it's just easier if you use AnyConnect. If you were in a real world, like here, my laptop connects to .1x over the wireless. That's the normal workflow, and it works in the exact same way.
Yeah. So we receive that metadata, and it's going to be via a connector. And if you need more information about connectors, there is a module in this video series on exactly what connectors are and how you set up a connector. We're actually going to do the ASA and ICE one together, though, in this session.
Sounds good.
So we get that data sent to titration. And at that point, still, it's just visibility. We just know about Bob. We know the flows that he is generating or receiving, and we also know the metadata about who he is. Is he authenticated? Is his device in a compliant state? What user group is he part of? Those kind of bits of metadata are available to us.
Okay.
So what might we do next with that metadata?
I see your diagram at the bottom, so I'm guessing like this is not like YAMS or whatever, right?
No, this is really actually something to do with our core prod banking application, our most valuable asset. And we want to ensure that Bob, and potentially only Bob, can access our core banking application.
So you're saying that before Campus was accessing, and we're saying we want to stop Campus from accessing the core banking, and we want to give Bob only?
Maybe just Bob only, maybe people that are part of his group. You know, it's really down to exactly what you want to define as the level of access available to Bob or the group of administrators. But you could lock it down to one individual user only if you really wanted to.
Okay.
So that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to modify the policy on our core banking application to no longer just let every user that is in our campus subnet access that core banking application, but instead only let authenticated users access that application.
Okay. That sounds interesting.
Sounds interesting. Sounds like it's much more secure, right? Think about it like this. If I have someone that can just walk into my building, plug their laptop into the network, and somehow get access to the network, should they be able to access my data center assets?
I would hope not, especially if you're in banking.
Especially if you're in banking, although you'd be surprised how often that actually happens. So
I'd rather not know.
I really would rather not know. But the thing is, that is what zero trust is all about. You have to assume zero trust about anyone, whether it's an employee or someone that is not an employee. And that means authenticating them and then deciding exactly what assets they should be able to reach. And that's really where the assets part comes into play. Tetration is the point of policy enforcement when it comes to tetration and ICE integration. The policy enforcement doesn't happen on the workload itself, because or I should say on the end user, because we don't have an agent running there, and then there is no way to enforce that policy there. We also couldn't necessarily trust an end user's device to enforce the policy in the way that we would expect.
Yeah, because you could have hardware exploit on a user device or stuff like that. You never know what could happen there.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But in the data center, under assets that we can control, we can actually enforce that policy in a very granular and scalable way. So we're going to be able to take that authorization and authentication information, build a policy inside the data center to describe who may access this application. And because all of this is dynamic, if Bob logs off of that workload or off of that machine, off that laptop, we'll get the same information in reverse. We'll learn about the fact that he is no longer authenticated to his laptop, and he would no longer be able to access this application anymore either.
Okay, so if Bob, for example, changes buildings, gets a different IP address, previous Bob is going to change IP address, is going to get removed, so IP.1, for example, is going to get released, and Bob will get a new IP, and this new IP will be assigned to the correct workload.
That's it. Yeah.
That sounds pretty secure.
It's very secure, and it requires a consistent level of automation. If you think about a campus, there are going to be users logging on, logging off, authenticating, moving around from different environments. There's going to be a lot of these changes. And that's really where it makes sense to actually enforce a lot of that policy on the workload or on the load balancer in front of that workload in a scalable way that is designed to deal with that constant change in the user identity. And if you want more information about where policies should be enforced, I would also recommend that you check out the module on policy enforcement and the right places to enforce policies.
So many modules, Tim.
A lot of modules. So, how about we actually walk through this and see what it's like to configure ICE, ASA, and some policies based on that identity?
Sure, let's give it a shot.
Let's do it.
Back to our same system.
Back to our familiar system, Acme.
Okay. So in our Acme company, yesterday we deployed two connectors. Let me rephrase. Two appliances.
Yes.
And we put two connectors. I know
Correct.
you were keeping an eye on me on that. So each of those connectors have different kind of needs. So this morning, actually, earlier today, we did syslog as a demo. We showed that better. I did preemptively enable ICE and ASA just because there's a bit of copy-paste, and I don't think anyone cares about copy-pasting.
I don't care about copy-pasting. I'm sure our viewers don't really care too much about copying and pasting either.
So if I go back to pure configuration then, I can go to my connector, and I have my ASA. It's the first one on your diagram, so I'm just following the diagram you put in. I go to my ASA, and there is no config. So it's pretty simple. You just hit enable, and once it's enabled, that's it.
Okay.
What does it tell you? Well, it's listening on NetFlow v9 over 192.168.122.21 4729 UDP.
Okay. It in this situation, is it the ASA or is this the connector, or who is listening on that port?
So that's the connector.
Okay.
The connector is listening on that port, and that's why if you look at the video series regarding the connector deployment, there were 3 IP addresses were set to the ingest appliance. And that's one of the 3. So it tells you which one it picked for this specific connector.
Okay, that makes sense.
So it's pretty simple. So just go there, and then whatever platform you're using in ASA, if you use the ASDM, use the CLI, you just copy paste the IP address and the port number, and that's it.
Seems simple enough.
Seems simple. There is no other config, so there's no way you can mess it up. Simple.
Seems Tim ready.
Tim ready. It's Tim proof. Now, that's the AC connector. Now let's have a look at the ICE connector. So if we go back to our connectors, I go to ICE. I can see my ICE has been connected. You can see that it's active around it. What do you need to configure ICE? Because that's usually the question that might be interesting. So if I go to edit, configuring ICE is basically a few key parameters that you will get from the ICE console.
Okay.
That's very important. All what you see here, with the exception of the name, is coming from the ICE console.
Okay.
And that's where the copy-paste becomes a bit interesting.
Okay, but ICE is generating this information for me.
ICE is absolutely generating this information for you.
Okay.
So there's a few things you need. First, ICE is actually relying on a protocol which is called PXGrid, which is introduced earlier. PXGrid is based on certificates. There's a client cert, and there is a node cert which authenticates who you're talking to. A bit like the iteration, just who you're talking to is authenticated by that.
Yep.
So pretty simple. You go to ICE and you can go and generate those certs, and then you can download them. It comes down as a zip package or a .jks file, so Java key store file that you can pull out of ICE. You take it, you open the files, you'll have the key, you will have the cert, you will have the CS cert inside it. You just go, you come here and you paste them. That's it. Hostname of ICE, pretty self-explanatory. Node name, I put the same, just like I'm used to putting the same. Technically, node name does not need to match.
Okay.
So it can be anything. Once you do that, you hit save, and then if you didn't mess up, you have the active that comes up.
Okay, so that green tick means it's actually tried to talk to PXGrid, and it's assuring that it is actually there.
Absolutely. So that's actually validated section. It's not just theoretical connection.
Okay, good.
So that's the first part. But that leaves us with a gap. I mean, you were asking about identity and stuff like that around that. So I'm guessing you would be interested in having the Active Directory group, I guess.
Yeah, seems useful.
So Active Directory group is actually pulled from Active Directory, no surprise. So you need to actually sync the data in there. So we didn't want to stay too locked in to Active Directory. Maybe you have something else in there. So you can integrate with an LDAP instance.
Oh, okay. So as long as it speaks the LDAP protocol, I would be able to pull that information up.
Exactly.
Okay.
LDAP secure, non-secure, whatever you want here. How do you configure that? Well, again, pretty simple. Username, password. It's Active Directory. We want to authenticate the LDAP sessions. I would always recommend use a user with the right set of privileges, independent user, specifically for titration. In my case, this guy is actually called -svc-titration. It's not my username.
Yeah, it's not. And that sounds like a more secure way to do it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not administrator. Especially don't use administrator on this one. Especially in Pro. Then LDAP server, IP address or hostname of Active Directory. LDAP port, you can use secure or non-secure. This is a lab. I did non-secure in there. Do not do that. Bad idea. But you know that. You can paste in your CS cert, you can put a nice name if you want to, and then you put the LDAP specific stuff. So what is LDAP specific? What is the base DN? If it's Active Directory, if your domain name is called pod.lab, your base DN is DC equals pod, comma, DC equals lab, always. That's how Active Directory handles that part.
Okay.
If you're using something else, it might be a different format.
Seems like you're an expert in Active Directory, Remi.
I know it's your favorite topic, Tim, so I researched it like deep inside.
Okay, good. I'm glad one of us knows.
You'll come to there, Tim, one day. Then you have the option to set what's called a filter string. So a filter string allows you to select specific elements inside LDAP. So for example, I don't care about searching for groups. If I user authenticate, it's going to be a user, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm going to say, I just want to see the organizational persons. That's a mouthful as well.
Very well pronounced.
Yeah, I'm sure it was. And once you've done that, you select which attributes you want to fetch.
Okay.
And there's two things you're going to get in attributes. One is going to be the username attribute, and one is going to be what do you want to show in the system.
Okay. And this is configurable, is it, the attributes?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
In there, I've chosen the SAM account name. We can go and edit that. So I don't want to change anything here. I might need to retype the password. Let's see.
Okay, so it's actually saying verifying the config, discovering the config, and then it's actually going to pull some dynamic attributes in and let me see what I can potentially choose from.
Exactly.
Nice. Nice.
You see, I didn't need to re-enter.
Good.
And that's my attributes. So what do I want to key the username on? So if you're using an Active Directory, it's simple. Your username is called SAM account name. That's it.
That's a really easily named attribute there.
Exactly. If you're doing ICE integration, I actually highly recommend you actually use SAM account name because that's actually the default that aligns pretty well with ICE.
Okay.
In there. The other one you could be using is called user principal name. User principal name is an email address. It's
see.
like, it would be bob@pod.lab.
Okay. Okay.
So that would be the UPN. And then you can choose different parameters you want to pull in. If you want to get an extra attribute, you can actually just go click, shows the list.
And this is actually pulled from the available attributes?
Exactly.
Okay, nice.
So you could have things, filter down on things. So for example, CN for the common name of the users and things like that will actually be available to you.
Okay. And how many attributes do we reckon or recommend that you should pull in generally?
I mean, it's always the thing, like, sky is the limit to some extent when it comes to attribute pulling. I don't see much value in pulling more than maybe 3 or 4. Here, for example, I pulled attributes such as last log on, last log off. I don't think those are necessary here.
Okay, and these are going to be stored as annotations inside the Tetration system, right?
Exactly.
So like in the inventory session where we talked about user annotations, you should always choose the annotations in a way that it is only picking objects that are actually going to be used by you. Don't pull in attributes if you don't have a need for them, either in the visibility part of Tetration or in the enforcement features.
Exactly, it's unnecessary overhead.
Yeah.
Give you an example. I don't think you need to pull the address of the user's physical address.
Yeah, it seems a bit backwards to have their address to enforce policy.
I mean, why would you use that? So that would be the kind of things that you would recommend doing. You hit next, save and apply config, and that's it.
Seems simple enough.
Simple.
Yeah.
Let's let it finish. And here we go. Config is applied, finish. You can see there's no more bar. No.
Good. Everything still shows as green at the top.
Which is good. We want green.
Yeah.
So what do we have at this point? Is this configured? I mean, it's just a NetFlow collector. We got NetFlow coming in to the machine. We configured ICE. We have a PXGrid session established, hopefully, to ICE, and we'll go and check that now. And we're pulling attributes from LDAP so we can actually get context on users.
Okay, so we have ASA and ICE set up, pointing towards Tetration.
Yeah, that's it.
What next?
What next? Maybe you want to see if ICE works.
I think that could be useful.
That could be useful. So if we move up to, if I click the right one, it might be there. You thought it had messed up with the black screen, you have to admit it.
For a second, but I had faith. I always have faith in you, Remi.
So here we go. We're on an ICE platform. It's just a regular ICE. I mean, I just took the OVAVM out of Cisco.com to deploy this, so it's not like fancy custom or anything like that. Config is pretty simple here. what do you need to configure? Well, first thing is, if you go to administration and you go to deployment, the first thing you need to make sure you have is here under ICE, there's a thing called PixGrid. You need to make sure that PixGrid is enabled on this setup. And if you go down, the last tick box is called PixGrid.
That's it?
You tick the box and you hit save.
Okay, I like that.
So I did it before because when you hit that box, actually starts the service, takes a few minutes to run. Again, I don't think we want to stare at the screen for a few minutes.
No.
Your call again, but...
I'm okay, we can move on.
Okay. Second thing I did here, that would be part of any proper ICE deployment or then lab, by the way, but just assuming you're deploying from scratch to test. I created here in the Active Directory section, I actually put a join point for our Active Directory, which is called pod.lab.
Okay.
So we connected up pod 02-AD has been connected from this ICE device.
Okay.
Why did I do that? Fetch usernames, that's all. So authentication, while authentication is actually done through ASA to ICE, it's actually ASA, ICE, Active Directory. Single sign-on.
Perfect.
Perfect. What could go wrong, right?
Yeah, only 3 things.
So at this point, that's what you have. So those are the 2 key points that you have here. Now we can move to PixGrid services. So again, administration, PixGrid services. Here are the list of everything that's connected to my platforms. But before you make a call on that, just keep in mind, this is all clients and there's web clients. Titration will show up in the web clients. The default page is all clients.
Okay.
So don't panic, it's okay. Nothing is wrong so far.
Keep calm, don't panic.
Exactly.
All right, let's take a look at the web clients then.
Let's look at the web clients.
Is it there?
It seems to be here, right? Here we go.
There we go. Nice.
So you can see what was the connector IP we're using when we set it up, I think .20.
Yeah, I do remember that's it.
.20. It's marked as on. So we're good.
Easy.
Connected. Few things that you might want to keep in mind. If you're doing lab, there's a few things you might want to think about. Here, there's a setting when you go into the settings page of PixGrid. The setting is called automatically approve new certificate-based accounts. If you are deploying in a lab, you probably want to tick this box because this way you don't need to come here and approve the cert. Basic just helps, goes a bit faster if you're going that. How do you get the cert? Well, certificate tab. And you just say, well, what do you want to do, Tim?
I want to connect to PXGrid.
Okay, so you want to generate a certificate. And do we have a certificate signing request?
I don't have one on hand right now.
You don't always have your certificate signing request with yourself?
No.
Okay. Click. If it does, let me, here we go. Then you put the CN. I usually put the IP address or the host name of the machine, but that's really your call. There's no restriction.
When you say of the machine, you mean of the connector here?
Of the connector, sorry, you're right.
Okay.
But I could put whatever, really.
Okay.
So that's what I put here. And what you want to download as is going to be here, the certificate in privacy and PEM file.
Okay.
First option. Password is mandatory on PXGrid. So you have to have the password on the certificate when you generate through ICE. That's one thing, you need to remove the password before you give it titration.
Okay.
So you can, online, there's lots of help on that. We have a white paper that explains that as well on the usual web page. It's called Go Titration. But you have to remove this password. Titration is smart enough to tell you why the import does not work. So you will get a clear error message saying password protected key.
All right. So we get the certificate and we want to remove the password from that certificate.
Exactly. And that's it.
That's fine.
So it is an extra step, but I'm pretty sure you don't want to go in and type the password every single time.
No, seeing as we're going to be connecting to this quite frequently, makes sense.
So that's the reason why.
All right.
And that's it.
Okay.
You generate a certificate here, If you have it on auto-approve, the auto-approve certificate will actually get approved if it connects up to you, and then you're done. And you make sure you have some form of authentication backend. Could be ICE itself if you really wanted to. In the environment, that's really your choice. And basically, that's it.
And this certificate was the one that we had previously copy and pasted into that ICE configuration page
That's exactly
on the connector.
right.
Okay, it's all coming together.
So you see?
All right.
So awesome. That's what we have here. What's the next step?
Well, we've got ASA configured, we have ICE configured. We haven't even looked at Bob yet.
Okay, so I have good news for you. This is Bob's laptop.
Ah.
Okay, I'm cheating. I could have deployed an administrator station, but you know, lazy bear theory. So no. So what I've installed an AnyConnect agent on this virtual machine in here, and you will see it's enabled with like the classic stuff in here. It's going to connect to 124.1, which is your ASA box.
Okay.
So simple. I made a huge effort when it comes to security as well, so you'll see that certificates are trusted by third-party sources, reliable, and all that stuff, like just as you would expect.
Keep clicking yes, accept.
Like that. So just close your eyes, Tim. It's all good. You've not seen anything.
Didn't see anything at all, sir.
See? Yeah, it's just asking for a password, Tim.
Okay.
The password for Bob, highly secure password. That's where you could plug in Duo, by the way. In here, I don't, because we just use local authentication, but that's it.
Okay.
Connection is establishing. And we're connected.
Okay.
So that's just connection from AnyConnect to ICE. Nothing related to titration. AnyConnect, ASA, ICE. Classical stuff, no titration related stuff. Just what you have today. Zero changes. And to show you that I'm really connected here, I can go here to operation. I can go to even the live sessions. Yes, I don't want to save my changes. Here. And you can see that Bob is connected.
Okay.
Sounds good to you?
Yep. And so that's just all the vanilla workflow of ICE and ASA. There's nothing special or nothing different that you've done right now.
Oh, absolutely not. All that is the pure normal stuff. I haven't done anything in the environment. I was just looking at like, is it 9 p.m., Tim?
Not quite yet.
I was like, we should have gone for dinner if that was 9 p.m.
Yeah.
So that's it. I mean, we're connected.
All right.
So maybe we need to go back to iteration.
Yeah, I guess something must have happened in the background, right?
We hope so.
Yeah.
We shall see. Let's go back. So unfortunately, as I was using our remote session, I had to get out. So back to here, same page. Now I can go down to my sensor, sorry. Why was I looking at the wrong side? Here. Ready, Tim?
I'm ready. Impress me.
See something new here?
I see something that says ICE, agent type ICE. I see a hostname and IP. This looks like possibly an IP from our campus. It says it's a workstation and it's checked in quite recently.
Absolutely. And that's what it was. 124.100.
Okay, so that came into titration from ICE via PXGrid.
Exactly.
Pretty quickly as well, right?
Yeah, it was super fast. And you can see, we'll talk through the annotations in 1 minute. But as we have the IP address, we're also starting to track now through ASA what this user is going towards the campus, the production, the DC side, sorry.
So as soon as Bob starts generating traffic to my applications, not only am I going to see that traffic, but I'm going to know something about Bob.
Exactly.
Okay, tell me what we know about Bob then.
What do we know about Bob?
Apart from that he lives under the sea.
Bob lives under the sea. Let's have a look. Bob is not a very good citizen, I can tell you that already from just like quick glance, not doing great.
No disk encrypted.
MDM
no
compliant, false. Disk encrypted, false. Jailbroken, false. Oh, at least he has one positive side.
He didn't jailbreak his phone. That's
Pin
fine.
locked, false. MDM registered, false. Okay.
Okay, so you're pretty relaxed with who can come onto your network.
Yeah. I should maybe set some policies around that. So Bob is the core banking user?
Yes, he's in charge of all banking for our Acme Bank.
I feel really well about that.
Yeah, don't bank with us.
No, definitely not. So you see, that's all the details that you're going to pull out from ICE across the environment. And some fields we're really interested in, the group ID and also obviously things like, for example, knowing that disk is encrypted.
Okay. So we know all of this information about Bob right now. And this information is tied to his current session, right?
Yeah.
And if he logs off, this information is going to be removed from his session?
Yeah.
Okay. Right.
Magic.
Magic. So now we know all of the information about Bob. We know the state of his device. We know that he's authenticated. We know his IP address. What's the last thing that we need to do to actually enforce these policies?
And we might first want to be able to identify Bob.
Okay.
So now we know him here by data. But I could do two things. I could use Bob username and say, you know what, Bob is the user, and I'm going to allow Bob only access to the core banking application. I could also take a more generic approach. See, Bob is part of group 513. 513 is actually all domain users. So I could also say, okay, group 513, all domain users are allowed to access the banking app.
Okay, but that's only authenticated domain users.
Authenticated domain users.
And what about some of the other things like secure group tags? Are they going to be available to me in here as well?
Yes, if I was using secure group tags, I would absolutely be able to use them.
Okay, and I could use them in the same way to identify a group of endpoints that have authenticated.
Exactly. And that could be a sort of clean boundary between campus and data center, in the sense that, hey, Mr. Campus owner, you tell me which tag you're using to identify users of application X. And then you take it and then you implement that integration. And then whatever he defines as SGTX becomes SGTX integration as well.
Okay, so we want to build a policy based on his group. How are we going to do that?
Okay, let's go. So which attribute is it? LDAP primary group ID?
Yeah, let's go with that one.
Okay, let's pick that. We're going to go to our visibility here, inventory filter, and we're going to create a filter which is, we said, authenticated user?
Yep.
Authenticated. Have to be careful, you're particular about spelling.
Yep.
Is
You
that
spelled
good?
that very well.
Okay.
And you spelled it in English this time?
I spelled it in guess it's too complicated, too many distinction. So we said group ID, right?
513.
513.
And are we going to associate that with a particular scope, or could we just associate it with the root scope?
I'm guessing we're probably okay with Acme, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we can locate it in if you want.
Yeah. I mean, we could lock it down to a particular subscope if we wanted to only select campus users that are authenticated from a particular campus location or something else that might be able to restrict it down further. But in this case, we're just going to go for every authenticated user no matter where they exist.
I like that. Next.
Nice.
Found Bob.
We found Bob, one address.
That's what
one
we
user
wanted.
part of that group. He's having a lonely day in the office today.
I can tell you the car banking application. How many nodes did you deploy for this app? Because I think you could probably run it with one server.
It's quite big.
So that's it. Created, done. And if I want to double check, I can click. And Bob.
And so right now it says there's one result, but let's say some of Bob's friends log on later. Patrick logs on, for example, and he's authenticated. Is he going to appear in this group as well?
Yes, you will.
Okay.
You don't need to do anything. It will automatically show up here.
All right, nice.
Shall we create a policy then?
Let's do a policy.
So, do you allow me to break your policy?
You can't break it, but you can enhance it.
Because here I see something that you did.
Yep.
So what we're saying here is that the only test difference we're going to do is going to call this guy here.
So right now you had the scope campus. That means every single campus user, and that was based on the campus subnets. So we don't actually necessarily know, are they authenticated campus users? Are you going to replace it?
I'm going to replace it.
Okay.
Authenticated users.
That was hard.
That was hard. Huge effort. Maximum effort.
And that's that.
You don't understand Marvel, I forget that all the time.
So we are now saying that to access the front end of this web application, which we already had locked down to campus users, now you have to be authenticated and you have to be part of that primary group ID 513.
Exactly.
And what's the final step then?
So remember, in this module, we talked about how we should be using a lifecycle and test and so on. Well,
you're going to go risky.
yeah.
You skipped the policy analysis because we're just doing a demonstration, but if you were going to do this in real life, you might want to do some policy analysis beforehand, because here you'd be able to identify, are there actually users accessing this application that aren't authenticated? You'd be able to go and warn them before you make that change and actually go ahead and do the policy enforcement.
I think we're good to go.
Oh, you put my name in there. That's fine. I'll take the heat.
Remember, it's immutable. Done.
Okay, that's in the history. And we know that from the module on audit logging.
Exactly. That's it, Tim.
Okay, so now we're actually enforcing policy based on the campus identity of Bob.
Exactly.
And anyone part of that authenticated group list will get access to that application, and no one else?
No one else.
That really does seem like a zero trust enforcement plane there.
It's a zero trust enforcement, and I'd say even more, because it's not like Patrick comes to the network, he can scan, but he will not see the server that Bob is using. He won't even, the IP will just show, not respond to anything.
Oh, it's like those applications sort of go into stealth and they're invisible. Okay.
So you just put a cloak over your network.
Okay. I've always wanted one of those stealth cloaks.
That could be useful some days.
Right.
Okay. So I think we've covered quite a bit of ground here.
Yeah.
So we moved from a place where we took the laptop of Bob. Bob had absolutely nothing from Tetration on his laptop. He connected to an ASA that was configured by his campus admin team or user team that talked to ICE, configured by the ICE team, that then connected to Tetration based on certificates that the ICE team provided the Tetration team. And then we enforced a policy in the core network to actually come and reduce what Bob can actually see in the network, but especially make sure that if someone else connects like Patrick, he could not go very far in there. Hopefully that was informative for you. If you're looking for more information, you can connect to cisco.com/go/tetration. Thank you.